I believe his top aide had accidentally told the truth of the cover-up, that they purposely hid life and death information from the Department of Justice in fear that that information could be weaponized against them. Everything is unraveling, and he's shaken, and he's trying to rope everyone in, including the Senate, including the Assembly, as many elected officials as possible, instead of telling the truth to the 15,000 families who lost loved ones in the last 10 months in our nursing home facilities.
That New York Democrat assemblyman who claimed Governor Cuomo threatened to destroy him for criticizing his nursing home response says he won't be supporting the governor politically anymore as backlash over the crisis grows.
New York GOP Congressman Tom Reed joins us now to react. Congressman, thanks for being with us this morning. So that assessment you just heard of what Cuomo's actually going through, do you think it's accurate? Do you think he's shaken right now? What's actually going on behind the scenes, in your opinion?
Well, I applaud Rod Kim for stepping forward, and I would join him in the effort to hold the governor accountable to completion. And it's exactly accurate. I think exactly what happened is what he described on the cover-up. Cuomo's number two went over, admitted the truth, and she clearly fumbled in her execution of trying to put this genie back into the bottle when she went over to the state assembly and state senate, and admitted on that taped confession criminal activity with obstruction of justice, perjury to the Department of Justice. But I want to go further. I still want to demand accountability for why this order that killed 15,000 people that we are talking about, where he ordered positive COVID-19 patients back into nursing homes where residents were not infected, ended up being the root cause of this thing that is going to need to be further investigated.
Representative Reed, we've talked to you in the past. We've talked about what accountability might mean, what it might look like for Governor Cuomo, whether or not that's a repeal of his emergency powers, impeachment, whatever it might be. I lived in New York for some 14 years. I can't tell you how many people kick a can down the road and complain about Bill de Blasio or complain about Governor Cuomo. But you know what they do in the end is they vote Democratic. Is there any electoral accountability? I know you potentially have some interest in challenging Governor Cuomo. Does a Republican have a shot to unseat someone like Governor Cuomo?
Absolutely, and we are seriously considering it. We've been asked by many people to do this for months because I think they appreciate the way I govern, not the governing by arrogance and bullying that Governor Cuomo does, but by trying to bring people together. As a proud Republican, I go into the room with Democrats. I founded the only bipartisan group in Washington, D.C., the Problem Solvers Caucus. I go into those fights knowing who I am, what I'm fighting for. And I got to tell you, up in Albany, one-party control under Democratic control, people are getting sick of it. I've been in the Bronx. I've been in Harlem. I've been inside the inner cities of New York City. And I will tell you, they are saying the extreme policies coming out of Albany are killing their communities. They do not like this one-party control, and I agree with them. And if I'm that voice to take on the governor, I will put my work ethic, I will put on my Republican ideology that I believe in, but I'm open to be challenged and to inspire people to do it better for New York and not be afraid of the different points of view that the Democrats bring to the room. That's what we'll be looking at as we go to change one-party control in Albany, New York.
So, Representative Andrew Cuomo, if he does run again, if he survives this to the ballot box, would be running for a record fourth term. Whoever's going to challenge him needs to be formidable, considering the political machine that he's built, as we've found out recently, through a lot of intimidation and now cover-ups. When would we know if you're going to be a candidate? What's your timeline to decide? And what would you run on this issue? And what would be the top 2 or 3 issues you'd run on?
Look, the nursing home scandal is not a political scandal from my perspective. I've been fighting this for months because 15,000 people died. When this order was issued in March 2020, we told the governor, don't do this. You're going to kill thousands of people. We also had the Nursing Home Association within 24 hours from the national organization tell them, you're going to kill people by doing this. This is about holding accountable the governor for this reckless order that he did, knowing he was going to kill thousands of people. And then I watched his number 2, Dr. Zucker, give a press conference this week and double down on the lie that political fact checkers said was false, that they were listening to federal government officials from the Trump administration, that this is why they did what they did. That was ruled false months ago by the fact checkers. That type of lying, that type of arrogance And then Dr. Zucker had the arrogance to tell those 15,000 people that died to their grave that they would do it exactly the same way again.
Yeah,
that type of arrogance has to end.
It is. Real quick, when are you going to make a decision whether you're running or not?
Look, we're going to get this taken care of on the Republican side. We're going to have a family discussion because we need to be organized. Like you said, it's going to be a formal effort. We're looking, we got to make this decision sooner rather than later. So stay tuned. We're in those final positions in my house because I have to obviously talk to my family and have that final okay. But I will tell you, we are getting close because I can't stand it any longer. This state needs to come out of one-party control.
Let us know when you do, for sure. Representative Tom Reed, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.